old dogs can do it.
Yeah, just as long as they don't make you jump after the ball or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, that was the deal. He said, I'll make you a better deal. He said, I'll pay for yours until you're 18. I said, I can do that.
They're pumped and charged. What's new with you?
Getting ready to represent the city and our sister city. Russia. Roseanne and I are going to fly over there the 22nd. A little nervous, but we're from the city. We've had the sister city relationship since 91. So
That's rough. That's rough. That's good of you. Good of you.
No, well, thank you. So he asked me if I could go do that. My wife said, that man made your whole career from city council work.
That's right. Go ahead.
It was pretty great. Okay, well, we have,
I haven't read the second.
but we have more. Thanks to you, Dennis.
Good. Good.
Yeah. You contributed.
I've been here in a couple of weeks. Yeah, good. I've been up
My dad had a kid.
No, not yet.
Are you plugging?
Yeah, I will hunt archery. I had a cow moose walk up in about 15 yards.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that was, they're not from anything. I'm by the right. Yeah, there's a really healthy population of moose up there. Yeah, in that area.
The, you know, when I go duck hunting down on the Arkansas, and I usually do really well down there.
Yeah.
But if the ducks aren't flying, once in a while, a bowl fly right over my line. Well, I don't care what your ducks are not, that may go.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's I'm walking down through that close.
Yeah, that's, it's not a matter of,
Killing something.
harvesting, you know,
Just being in there.
yeah.
There's some fishing ponds up there, we've been catching a few fish.
No.
No, got a few rounds.
Oh, did you? Okay, I think we can get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the PPRTA Board of Directors for September 13th to order. We do have a quorum. We do have 5, and to our legal counsel, I believe 5 is a correct quorum number. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as was mailed out?
Motion to approve the agenda as mailed out.
Is there a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And opposed? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience, it's time for public comment, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the board on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing no hands, then we'll move forward. In your packet also is the minutes from the August 7th meeting. Are there any changes or additions? I'm not seeing any. Is there a motion to approve these as well?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And opposed? Okay. Jim, let's go to the Citizens Advisory Committee monthly report.
Good afternoon, Jim Godfrey, Chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Our meeting on 6 September was relatively uneventful compared to some of the more recent months, so try not to fall asleep doing this report. The 2018 budget calendar that Bev will present to you next, going forward with the recent budget adjustment, we have a positive recommendation for that calendar as it's presented. City of Colorado Springs came forward with some contracts. We had some discussion about a couple of them. They brought some folks, some other staff with them to help clarify some of our questions, and we appreciate that very much. Several of them, about 5 of them, were contracts funded with maintenance funds for expanding the pool of companies from which they can get temporary hires to do construction, inspection, and that kind of stuff. No definite contracts, but to the not-to-exceed kind of things that we've seen in the past. And several others to include some chip seal material, a couple of pipe relinings, and some pedestrian improvement stuff. So we make a positive recommendation on all of the city's contracts as presented. Then, if you remember last month or a month or so ago, going back to PPRTA 1, and for the new members, near the end of PPRTA 1, the board made a decision to kind of, we used the word sweep at the time, sweep some excess funds from projects versus allowing member governments to reallocate them in their own budgets, so that as we got near the end of RTA 1, we didn't have a project that was partially completed and no money to complete it. And so they kind of went through a budget relook on projecting cost and collected about $5 million into what we've been referring to as a pool. Recently, the county came forward on Mark Shuffle to reallocate some of that money. We asked the city and the county to come back with a plan on how they would propose to spend that remaining balance. It's just under $5 million. It's about 4.9 or so. They came forward with that plan, so they'll present that with you today. We make a positive recommendation for that plan as well. And then just to bring to your attention, as per Board Policy 26, where we were talking about significant increases in the original cost, projected cost of projects, that they would come back and inform the board. The city came forward with a cost revision for Academy over Cottonwood Creek Bridge Rehab. As Rick reminded us, the ballot measure actually reads Academy over Cottonwood Creek Bridge Rehab. What you'll hear from the city is that they propose a total replacement. We don't have a problem with that. Just be aware that that is a thing, and so I'm sure Mike will cover that as he presents. And
That's a major rehab.
it is a major rehab. It's a better one, and I'll let Mike explain it and not steal his thunder, but it was an information item only, but we just want to let you know we did discuss it. That's all we got.
Okay, is there any questions for Jim? Anybody in the audience like to speak to any items he brought up? Okay, Jim, thank you very much. I need a motion to accept the CAC report. Is there such a motion?
Yes.
Okay, a second?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed? Okay, yeah, we got to get everybody's name on the list so they, okay. Well, we are very fortunate today to have what we've referred to as Good News Bev. Today it's Great News Bev. Bev, let's go with the financial report.
Okay, so we received our sales and use tax figure of $8.6 million for the month of July yesterday, and compared to our budgeted monthly of $7,693,000, we're way ahead by $910,000 for the month, or 11.8%. And that puts us ahead by $2,055,000 for the year, or 3.8%. And on the second page, we compare the figures for this year to last year, and we're ahead $5,039,000, or 9.83% compared to last year. It's actual. So the next 3 pages are the revenue and expense summary. And the top part just puts the revenue in compared to the budget, which you just saw on the previous pages. And then we go through the expenditures of administration, transportation, maintenance, and capital compared to their individual budgets. And nothing is over budget.
Okay. Any questions for Bev on the financial report? Seeing none. Bev, let's go to the 2018 budget calendar, because we're going to need to address this, make a motion to address this calendar, I believe.
Yes, okay, so I'm looking for a positive recommendation of my draft 2018 budget calendar, and it satisfies the legal requirements set by the state of Colorado for government agencies, and it's very similar to last year's, and it puts the public hearing date for December 13th.
Okay. Any questions? I believe in your packet is that calendar, the second page in. And I did want to call to your attention, this past year, weren't we around 91 million was our budget? What was the original budget? 89. And we, if you remember, we amended that to a higher number, and this year we're recommending 100 million for next year. So, is there any comments from the audience? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the 2018 budget calendar? All right. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. All right, Dennis. You spoke first instead of. Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the 2018 budget calendar, say aye. Aye. And opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Let's go to the City of Colorado Springs Capital Maintenance and Public Transportation Contracts.
Good afternoon, Mike Chavez, City Engineering. Got several items for your review and consideration. The first five contracts are what Jim referenced for is we're looking at using or having the ability to use additional temporary agencies for some staff as needed for construction inspections and also on some of the asphalt crew.
Okay.
And these, like I said, are basically, we added the RTA language so they can be used with RTA funds.
Okay.
So next item, we got a construction contract for CMS to construct two signals at Constitution, Murray, and Fountain and Circle. I did check with them, and we didn't do signal work there. We did something else, but the signal's been needing to be replaced for several years. There was a question that we thought it might have been done recently. Next item is a maintenance item to provide crack seal material to the operations department, and so that's basically the tar they use to seal cracks, so help waterproof them. Next item, we have another construction contract for pipelining under Ruskin Drive between Shelley and Whittier for laying inliner for $54,000. That's just a pipe that's on the road that's falling apart. Have another one for in situ form for pipe under Circle Drive. That one's $109,000. And then we have three more maintenance supply contracts for crack seal material with different providers. And again, those are just ability to have more than one supplier since the market's kind of tight and one vendor may not have the availability to supply materials. The next item, 13, is a change order to the Even Pricer Missing Sidewalk Program, and that's actually stormwater money. They did the Acacia Drive, and so that's a change order of that contract, but it's not RTA money. It's stormwater for work that they did there by the elementary school, Taylor Elementary. And then the final one, we have a preliminary and final design change order to AECOM for the Bermejo and Sierra Madre. And that one is non-RTA money too. It's URA and some other funding sources that's in the memo.
Okay. Is there any questions? Yes, Yolanda?
Just a comment. It was kind of nice to hear those addresses because I used to live on Whittier a long time ago.
Any other comments? Anybody in the audience? Okay, is there a motion to, and these have been reviewed and recommended by the CAC. Is there a motion to approve?
I move.
Is there a second? Second. All right, thanks, Yolanda. See, all in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I've told this story before, but we have gotten on City Council a couple of emails that said, when is all the work on our roads going to start? And I told me they're not driving around, if that's the case. When I went, it wasn't this year, but last year when I went to the rodeo, the clown had a microphone on him, and he had something covered up out in the middle of the rodeo grounds, and he says, Pikes Peak is no longer the most prominent thing in Colorado Springs, and he uncovered an orange cone, which I thought was funny, and I thought I loved it. And you've got a lot of orange cones on your... All right, let's go to the City of Colorado Springs Transit report. Thanks, Brian.
Good afternoon. Brian Vituli with the City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metropolitan Transit with your monthly transit report. For our fixed route services, for the month of July, we saw an increase of 1.3% over July of 2016. And what you'll see in the chart below, there are just a couple items I'd like to point out that all of the months of 2017 are continuing an upward trend of ridership over 2016, which is great news. And what's also interesting, if you look at the ridership levels for July of 2015, 2016, and 2017, you'll see that they're all pretty much in a very tight pattern, which I can't really explain other than, July tends to be a pretty heavy vacation month. So that's the only thought that comes to mind, but it is very interesting how over the past 3 years that ridership is so tight. And no school, yeah, good point. Good point. For our ADA paratransit services, we saw a 1.75% increase over that same time period. And for our van pool services, we saw a 9.3% decrease from July of this year as compared to July of 2016. For our project update, in a couple weeks, on Sunday, October 1st, we'll be implementing some service increases that we had a couple public processes in January and July of this year, which will include adding frequency to Route 25, which operates from the Citadel Mall north on Academy up to the Voyager Parkway Transfer Center up by Chapel Hills Mall. So this is continuing our movement to try to develop some high-frequency transit corridors. So that's going from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. And then also we'll be adding one vehicle into the operation of routes 10 and 11 that leave the downtown terminal, go south on South Nevada to Southgate Road before they branch off and converge on Pikes Peak Community College. So that's another one of our 15-minute transit corridors. But we've been experiencing some on-time performance issues along that corridor for some time, and we think that feel very confident that adding one more vehicle into the lineup will be able to expand the time that it takes to get from point A to point B. There's no real service increase. Our customers will only notice that they're more on time, so that will be a big boost. 2 weeks from yesterday, on September 26th, we'll be going to City Council, where we're hopeful that they will pass a resolution of support for our new location of our downtown transit center. Early this year, the mayor appointed a steering committee to look at the results of a study that we had last year that identified 3 potential sites as feasible sites for a new downtown transit center. And the steering committee went through those 3 sites and looked at a lot of other criteria and came up with a ranking of those 3. So the top ranked site is on the west side here at Colorado Avenue and Sawatch, and bordered by Sierra Madre on the west and Cucharis on the south. So it's 3/4 of that block will be outlined for our new downtown transit center. This is a block and a half north of the new Olympic Museum and Hall of Fame. And the other 2 sites, which were feasible candidates also, are going to be, prioritized as the number 2 and number 3 site. And we wanted it to go this way because we've been looking for a new downtown transit center for 20 years. And for a number of reasons, we've not quite gotten there. So we wanted a backup plan in case this top 1 site did not work out. We could go to the second one or go to the third one if needed. So, we're hopeful that some of the steering committee members will show up at the council meeting to be recognized because they did a lot of good work to get us to where we're going. And next month, either Craig Blewett or myself will be back here, and also to the RTA CAC to kind of present a summary of what we're looking to do in 2018, a service improvement plan for 2018, which is brought to you by the PPRTA revenues above budget. So we have a lot of good improvements that we're hopeful for next year. Some we'll implement in the spring, where we don't need additional vehicles. Some off-peak services, Saturday and Sunday services, weekday evening services. And then we have another order in for more vehicles, and whatever services that we are promoting or recommending that need vehicles will most likely be implemented next fall. But we'd like to come and give you a presentation of what we're preparing for next year.
David?
Yeah, I was just going to say, because we talked about that a little bit yesterday
Right.
at City Council, and that's kind of what I'm looking at, just to bring you up to speed. I talked to Elaine, actually making a presentation and plan on making a presentation.
Are you talking to the mic, Dave?
Sure, I could, and I can even turn it on. To present, to make that presentation to the CTAB and the CTAC
Okay.
as well.
Okay, sure.
That'd be
You're
good.
welcome. Yeah, we plan to,
Sorry, now it's on.
and we plan to give that same presentation to the CTAB and to the Transit Passengers Advisory Committee and just kind of
Okay.
spread the word. Yes.
Any other questions for Brian? Yes, Mayor?
I'm sure he probably already knows what I'm going to ask. Just curious how the bus stop on Old Man's Trail is coming along.
Yeah, well, we are, I believe we're reaching the deadline for contractors to bid on that work. And over the next couple weeks, I believe it may have even been last week, September 5th, I believe, or September 7th was the deadline. So we'll start to review the applicants who bid on that work and get the contracts in place, and hopefully by sometime in October get to doing all of that work. And this is an unfortunate thing. These are the service improvements that we implemented in spring of 2016, but because of the historical nature of a lot of the bus stops and where they lie, some in the old North End neighborhood, which is a historic district, some in Manitou, they had to go through a Section 106 historical review that involved the Federal Transit Administration and Colorado agency that deals with historic issues, and it was just a very, very time-consuming process. So absolutely, I believe we're probably going to be doing some work on Weber Street first, and that will be part of the plan of how the contractor gets out there and does the work. But Manitou is right up in line for getting that work done first.
Will you just make sure to let me know if it's going to be any longer? I am going to put up some sort of temporary structure because I'm already getting a lot of,
Right.
feedback
Sure.
for not having a shelter,
Yeah.
isn't it,
Yeah.
though? So just let me know, and I'm happy to do that, and I understand the process and prioritization and all that stuff, but I do want to put something up, and I'm happy to do so, even if it's just a temporary yurt.
Yeah, I'll let you know. And it's looking really good that when we said before winter, we, actually meant before this winter. The services will be in there, so.
One last thing, sorry. I didn't see and maybe we don't usually have them on here, but I'm spacing out, just the ridership on the shuttles. How's that looking since the incline's been closed for construction?
It's taken a little hit, but it's still so far ahead of even last year, last year was a record year. So it just keeps growing year by year.
Yeah.
But we do share those with your staff, and but yeah, they're not in this report.
That's okay, yeah.
Yeah, it took a little hit since the incline closed, but there's still other great trails and activities up
Yeah.
there. So.
And everybody's still shopping, even though we
Right.
do have orange cones up the wazoo. I mean, everybody's still coming, so
Great.
appreciate it. Thanks, Brian.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions? For Brian? Anybody in the audience? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. All right. Let's go to the City of Colorado Springs, El Paso County plan for spending the remaining PPRTA 1 capital projects pool funds. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Kathleen Krager, the Colorado Springs City Traffic Engineer, talking about what I love to talk about most, spending money. And back before PPRTA 1 ended, we all began to talk about how do we end PPRTA 1 and then proceed into PPRTA 2. And we really had two choices as PPRTA 1 came to a close. There was going to be a small amount of money left over after we finished our main projects. But to go to the B list, it was going to be a very small amount of money when you looked at what was on that B list. As you remember, maybe not remember, but PPRTA 1 even had a C list. So we'd been very optimistic about extra projects that we could do, and it just wasn't going to stretch very far into those. Plus, according to the actual rules, we still had projects that were under construction, under design, or under planning as PPRTA 1 was finishing, so we'd have to wait till those projects on the A list got completely done before we could move to that B list. So the board made a decision back in 2014 that it would be wiser to take the leftover PPRTA 1 money, sort of pool it as all the projects finished, and we saw exactly how much money we had, and reserve that for use on Mark Shuffle. Mark Shuffle Improvements was an A-list project. We had done some improvements on Mark Shuffle, but on the A-list, it really said Mark Shuffle all the way from the southern end of El Paso, where it went into Fountain, up to Black Forest, where it doesn't exist at the moment. So there was a long stretch of Mark Shuffle, and a lot of it had not seen improvements and definitely needed to be improved. So the decision was made to pool the money then and put it toward Mark Shuffle. Some of that money was spent on South Mark Shuffle to complete that portion of the A-list project on South Mark Shuffle, which is now completed. But there's still about $5 million in that reserve account. And we can't be exactly sure as we're finishing up the A-list projects from PPRTA 1, but there could be more money coming into that account as well. So it was time for us to start looking at how we spend that money and what we were going to do. I can definitely tell you there's more than $5 million worth of improvements to do on Mark Shuffle. The unimproved area basically is from North Carefree north to Black Forest. That's a long stretch. Some of it is two-lane roadway, and some of it is not built at all. So we're not going to get everything. The question is, what do we try to get out of that $5 million? The city and the county sat down and sort of set up a list of priorities on how to spend that money and how to stretch that money really as far as we could go and get other funds with it. So the priority that we came up with was first to build the Mark Shuffle Bridge over Sand Creek, which is just north of Woodman. you might think, well, that's sort of an odd thing, but that is in the Forest Meadows area, and it's also in an area of El Paso County that is rapidly developing. There is no Mark Shuffle currently in just south of Sand Creek. If we put in that bridge with PPRTA funding, then we have developers in line ready to build Mark Shuffle to Cowpoke and extend Cowpoke to Mark Shuffle. This provides a secondary access to Forest Meadows, which is greatly needed in that area. Currently, sort of their only way to get out is Black Forest Road, and Black Forest and Woodman is suffering because of that. So they need a secondary access, plus there's an area of the county ready to develop that needs that access as well. So we can take advantage by building that bridge of grabbing some developer money to get a significant amount of roadway in that really serves our existing residents. That's probably going to take around $2 million. It is a large culvert design. So there's the first $2 million shot, but we still have some money left over, $3 million plus maybe. So the next area that we looked at was Mark Shuffle between North Carefree and Barnes. If you're familiar with the area, the current improvements on Mark Shuffle stop just north of North Carefree, and then you go into a little dip where when it rains, water comes across Mark Shuffle. But don't worry, there is a yardstick that sticks out of the side of the road to tell you how deep the water is before you drive into it. We were thinking maybe that's really not adequate. So the county has been saving their maintenance money for a couple of years in order to fix that and put a culvert and raise that area of Mark Shuffle. The city, in the meantime, has a developer that is ready to develop up at Mark Shuffle and Barnes and is required to provide some improvements to Mark Shuffle as part of their development. So we got together and said, why not combine the county's money down at the drainage area, the city's developer money, and some of this leftover PPRTA 1 money, and see if we can't get basically a 5-lane cross-section, 2 lanes in each direction and a center turn lane in for Mark Shuffle all the way from North Carefree to Barnes to ease up on some of the congestion in that area. So that's our next area to go. I'm going to tell you about an area that doesn't require any PPRTA money, but just to assure you that we keep thinking about these things. The city also has a developer on the hook to construct next year the 5-lane cross-section of Mark Shuffle between Dublin and Woodman. Again, if you're familiar, it goes from a nice 4-lane roadway down to a 2-lane roadway, and then it widens back out at Woodman, but it causes a little restriction in that area that does cause traffic delays. And so we have a developer in that area that will be widening that next year. That leaves the area between Barnes and Dublin as a 2-lane roadway that needs to go to a 4-lane plus roadway. And we will have a new section of roadway that needs to be built from Cowpoke to Black Forest. We think at the moment it's more important to get that 2-lane section into a 4-lane section. So we put that as the third priority. Hopefully we'll still have a little money left over that we can put on it. If not, the city and the county will both be looking jointly for other sources of funding. And I go with the theory that something will come from somewhere. We just have to wait and be patient and keep asking, but that will be our next priority on Mark Shuffle. And then our last priority, I think development will probably end up building Mark Shuffle between Cowpoke and Volmer, which is then another way into the Forest Meadows area and into the county. And our last section, which is going to be an expensive section, is going to be Mark Shuffle Road from Volmer over to Black Forest. It has a major bridge that will have to be constructed at Cottonwood. It's a pretty pricey piece, so we're going to have to look for some funding in order to get that bridge in. But I know Jennifer's looking in her back pockets. I'm looking under my couch cushions, and sooner or later we'll find something to complete that.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions for Jennifer? Do you have anything you wanted to add?
How's those back pockets coming, Jennifer?
I just want to say thank you to the City of Colorado Springs. I think we've been working great together as usual and putting our regional caps on. This isn't a city road versus a county road. It really is a truly regional road. And
That's because it changes designation every 10 feet.
yeah, well, we'll talk about that. But in any case, I think the first two projects are definitely ones that we start to work on. If you look at the memo, you know, the board approved last month the money for the Sand Creek Bridge, and I know the city will get that underway as far as design. We've talked about getting the second one under design, and I think that getting those under design will allow us to get those additional monies in and see where we are at as time goes along. But what I'm also happy about is that this gets us underway for those projects. If we wait until all the other projects are done, it's probably going to be another year or two. So I think it's smart to go ahead and start getting these projects under design, find out how much they cost, and then work together if there's any underfunding to figure out a solution for that delta. And then having those other projects kind of bulleted and gives us a lot of other flexibility. If there's additional money left over, then we can figure out how to best leverage our funds. So I think we have a good plan, and if it changes, we will be coming back. The second thing is that any other construction contracts, we will be coming back to the board. So this isn't the last time that you will see it.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? I appreciate you guys working closely together. We're seeing that we can get much more efficiency done when we work together. This is a plan that they're bringing to us for spending the remaining PPRTA 1 capital project pools fund. Is there a motion to approve this plan? This is also being recommended by CAC, I believe.
Motion.
Is there a second? All right. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. And opposed? Okay. Let's go with the City of Colorado Springs monthly change orders. This is information only, I believe.
Actually, is there a report for the Cottonwood Creek?
That was the next one.
Okay, so okay, so we'll do that. Then I'll do the
missed
change.
that. Sorry.
Oh.
My fault.
No problem. Mike Chavez, City Engineering. So according to Policy 26 that the board approved recently, whenever we have a project that is significantly over the original budget that we had identified, we need to come and give you kind of an update on that. So project I'm talking about today is the Academy Bridge over Cottonwood Creek. That was stipulated to be a rehabilitation originally. We had done some work in 2010 and had an estimate that it would cost about $3.4 million to do all that work, and that included adding another cell to the existing 3 cells for a bikeway to connect the Cottonwood Trail. The money that was actually identified in the RTA ballot was about $1.28 million for the roadway work, and then $600,000 of parks money, RTA parks money for the underpass. And that doesn't add up to 3.4. The thought there was that Park and Rec would come up with some tops or some other funding. So that's why there's a little difference. But basically, we had a number 3.4. As we've had construction inflation, we've calculating that since the ballot was up for a vote and now that project would have increased to about $5.4 million. It's just from inflation. So we got a consultant start looking at the bridge to design it, and one of the things that we looked at was we could rehabilitate it and gain 30 years of additional service life, max. Or if we replaced it, we'd get 75 to 100 years. So we changed tactics and we had the consultant hire a general contractor to do a construction manager, general contractor type project delivery. And what that does is you get a contractor early on to review the plans, to start giving cost estimates as you're going through it. And they can provide suggestions on how they would build and try to save some costs or keep the costs down. So what we came up with was that it would cost about $7.5 million to rehabilitate the bridge or about 10.1 to replace it. And what the city is leaning toward, or we're looking at doing, is we actually want to replace it. And the main two reasons is, one, we're going to get a new project that will be in place for a long time. I told the CAC that if we rehabilitate it, I have some people on my staff that might actually revisit this in 30 years. If we replace it, it's, 75 years at least before we have to touch it. If we go back in 30 years, it's going to be a lot more to replace it. And the other thing is we feel that the bridge and the opening that it provides better conveyance of the floods that could come down Cottonwood Creek. We've had some pretty heavy storms in the past. And we just feel more comfortable that if we do the bridge, it's just going to be, we've got more insurance that it'll keep the water underneath the bridge and not overtop the road. So we are looking at doing that. And the last part of my memo, what we have right now is currently we've got $6.1 million of RTA money approved. That's $5.5 million of roadway, and then the $600,000 that Park and Rec has in the RTA for Cottonwood Creek Trail. We're going to need to supplement the 18 budget with $3.4 million, and we've kind of got that built into our proposed budget, which you'll be seeing in a month or so. And then Park and Rec will bring in another $700,000, so we have the 10.2 that we need. The only other thing is the figures that have the total cost. Those have some contingency built in, so there's the hope is that we got enough to cover it, maybe even be able to return a little money, but we shouldn't have to come back for more.
Okay, great. Is there any questions or comments for? Yes, please. Mayor?
Nicole Nicoletta. Just for clarification, because I'm still learning, believe it or not, after a year and a half PRTA. When you come back in 2018 with the funding request for that 3.4, is that that's money that was already allocated? It's just has to be spelled out differently since it's going from a rehab to a replacement?
Well, part of it is we have a bigger 18 capital budget based on, we went instead of 88, 89, we have 100 in our portion. So that's helping cover this additional cost.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? This is an information only. Does anybody in the audience like to speak to this item? Mike, thanks. And
Okay.
I think in October, we'll get another report from you on this. Is that correct?
We'll probably come back in November with the actual construction contract.
All right.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Oh.
Unless, you might as well stay right
Yes.
there. This is the monthly change order and property acquisition report from the city of Colorado Springs.
So this month we have one change order for the Centennial reconstruction for Kiewit Construction, and that's it's $87,000 to put in some landscaping. When we originally awarded the project, we had a middle section that we were going to build out of concrete. We didn't have enough money in the budget to award the actual mill and overlay of the third section, so we were challenged there. But during the start of the construction, we had to actually change the section of road. There was a lot of shallow utilities, so we were going to take out about 2.5 or 3 feet of roadway in the first segment, and utilities just wasn't comfortable with that. So we actually changed the section to a thinner section with pavement, a little bit less base, and a geogrid. Well, that was significantly less expensive, so we also used that section in the middle instead of concrete. We used this thinner section, which will hold up well, but we were actually able to then add back in the third segment and add this change order, and we're still under the budget that we've had approved. So we're in good shape.
Any questions for Rick on this? All right, thank you
All right.
very much.
Then there's one more. That's just some additional stormwater that we needed on the Woodman project.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you. Let's go to the quarterly report from member governments. Rick?
Rick Sonnenberg, PPRTA. This is just an information item. It's quarterly reports that are required of each of the 5 member governments to submit to the PPRTA for their accomplishments for the quarter, and I'll be glad to handle any questions.
And I believe, Rick, we got a separate piece of paper from the city of Rama
Yes.
that, just so you know, if you don't see it in that report, it was added to your
Yeah,
stack of
I
information.
put that at your places. It's just a two-sentence report saying they had no activity, so,
Okay.
for the quarter, so.
Any questions for Rick? Anybody in the audience? Nice job, Rick. Let's go to the status report on administrative actions and reports.
Just an update of where we are on the various steps, statutory steps that I coordinate closely with your attorney, Jennifer. So far, Beverly and I have hand-delivered the 4 items that had the September 8 deadline, the board's resolution, the IGA between the PPRTA board and the clerk and recorder's office, the ballot measure language that the board approved, and the 50% estimated deposit check of $105,274. So all those, and Bev and I also went to an orientation on how elections are handled at the clerk and recorder's office. So everything, we're up to date on all steps so far. The 2 remaining steps are the clerk and recorder will email back to me Thursday or Friday the ballot language for me to proof. Of course, it'll be easy because it's only about 6 or 8 lines of narrative. And then I have to email back and say, yes, I've proofread it and it's good to go. So that's the step this Thursday or Friday. And then we have an open time period for pro and con statements with a statutory deadline of September 22nd for me to receive those. And then if either the pro or there's a 500-word limit on each of the pro and con statements combined that have to go back to the clerk and recorder. So I will collect and edit the net of the pros and the net of the cons to get them each down to 500. So far, I've received 2 con statements. I've not added up the number of words to see if we're over the 500 on the cons. But so the deadline for me to receive those is September 22nd, which is a Friday, and then I have, let's see, would that be Tuesday the 26th to get my summary of the pros and the cons back to the clerk and recorder.
Great. Any questions for Rick? All right. Thank you. Jennifer, let's turn it over to you, please.
If I might interject, if someone would announce that item 11 is not going to be an action item.
Yes.
So that folks who, if there's going to be no action taken after the executive session, then some folks might care to leave.
Before we do that, I would like to just report something to the board, and I'd like the people in the audience to hear this. We've received a note from the Denver area that they would like to talk with leadership down here about forming a PPRTA or an RTA of their own. And we've agreed to meet with them probably sometime in middle to late October. Probably have Rick be a part of that. I'm glad to do it. I'd like Mark from the county to be a part of that as well. But just wanted you to know that they're interested in that, and I think they're our neighbors. We should talk to them about it, you know. So, Jennifer?
Yeah. So as Rick mentioned,
Yeah, we'll hold I-25 expansion up over there.
So as Rick mentioned, we won't have an agenda item 11, but for agenda item 10, I would recommend going into an executive session pursuant to 24-6-402-4B to receive legal advice on specific legal questions relating to the litigation surrounding the sales and use tax that we're collecting from Walmart.
Okay.
If we
I
can-
I need to go around and take a vote.
If we get a motion.
Is there a motion?
I move.
Okay.
I move to go into executive session.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. All right. Dennis?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
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 Yolanda? Yes. Okay. We'll go, let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll go into executive session. Right. No. They do have Dr. Cog, which is...
Oh, you heard his name. He said, what
Are
you
we
talking
ready?
about?
Okay. All right. I declare us out of executive session. Are there any PPRTA member announcements?
Yes, I just wanted to say that my city council is going to be considering the IGA for the GAP next Tuesday.
Okay. And our city council has decided that we're going to wait until the month of November to do that, and because if it's not approved, then it becomes moot. And so since we have the time to do that, it doesn't become effective, that's when we're going to deal with it. Yeah.
That's the official reason. The real reason is because we're booked until then.
Yeah, we got a million other things. Anything else from the group? All right, we're adjourned.
Right.
Oh, what time is that?
If the, I know I've heard this numerous times, if the property that Walmart is on is in Fountain, part of Fountain.
Call Mario Cap.
Municipality, but they're not part of RTA,